Okay, so hi, our team is the boys within TFC. Today we'll be talking to you guys, the TFC Board of Directors. My name is Akina Ajibola. I'm in charge of supply chain.
My name's Kenny Funkum, and I'm in charge of sales.
I'm Carlos. I'm in charge of purchasing.
And my name is Elijah Ricks, and I'm in charge of operations. Thanks.
All right, to kick our presentation off, we will be starting with our capacity plan and analysis with me and Akeem. Our capacity plan covered from period 0 through 1, and one thing that we had noticed from period 0 was that not our obsolete products, but rather our penalties were actually incredibly high. They had reached over 600,000, and in being in charge of sales, I believe that in order to target this, we would have to decrease our service levels in order to negate the penalties that we were already getting. So my decision was that I had decided to decrease our service levels from 95% to 85%, which did in fact increase our penalties to bonuses by over 600,000. But in return, it actually dropped the ROI from 10.3% to 29.8%. And the reasoning for this drop in ROI was because in the top, as you can see in the top right corner, we had a large amount of obsolete products, which did skyrocket as a result of that decrease in service levels, which did let us know to try and find and maintain a balance between our service levels where we could continue to increase our revenue while not having a high amount of obsolete products.
And so, from a secondary viewpoint, which is supply chain, we also realized together that there is a large amount of low service levels, and so to combat these, I decided from the supply chain point of view to decrease the frozen period of production. That way, that our set production, isn't staying consistent with a strategy we found a long time ago, and is staying up to date with current trends in the market, such as increased and decreased usage and demand of these products. And so for our C power line, we noticed that there was a low amount of service level as well, lower than the others particularly. And so I decided to increase the safety stock for our C power line. That way, whenever we ran out, we increased our C power line and got more of it within every period so that we had enough to match the demand. And so that way we weren't having a lower service level within our C line. And in doing this, I actually did improve the service level for our C power line. But because I neglected to increase the safety stock for some of our other products as well, we can see in the graph to the right that C power did decrease, but all the other products did not increase and actually decreased from week 0 to 1 because I forgot to or neglected to increase the safety stock for those products as well.
So then we got to weeks 4 and 5, where we were able to actually finally look at the decisions we'd made and start to optimize our business. Next slide. So the challenge of this period was that we were having inventory issues where we were having a hard time deciding and figuring out what the optimal amount of both raw material and finished good pallet locations were. So our plan to fix this was to reduce raw material pallet locations from 1950 to 1750 because we had too many of them, and then to increase the finished good pallet locations from 1720 to 1900 because we did not have enough of them. Whenever we were deciding on doing this, we found that our prediction, at least, was that we were going to reduce the cost of raw material pallet locations. It was going to save us $20,000, and it was going to result in an overflow cost increase of about $5,000, but we are also going to gain some more on the back end due to the reduction of outsourcing. So we were predicting it was going to save us approximately $16,000. Then once we started looking at the numbers for finished goods, the finished goods warehouse, we were actually going to incur another $18,000 of variable expenses because of because of the increase of locations, but it was going to save us over $70,000 because we wouldn't have to deal with the massive overflowing issues that were occurring. And this also allowed us to decrease the amount of overtime hours that our employees were working. And so that was going to save us about $69,000. Whenever you start to look at it in terms of an ROI, because of those increases, or because of those savings, we predicted that it was going to save us about 2% in our ROI. However, because we were able to optimize the inventory like we were, it actually had downstream effects all the way through the company, and we actually went up about 3.8% in ROI. Carlos?
And to kind of build off of what Akeen over in supply chain was talking about is we had high obsolete costs, um, about 546,000 in penalties. And to address this, we initially thought for F&G and land to reduce our service level from 95 to about the 85 range, which did work. It decreased our penalties by uh, um, down to zero, and even paid us a bonus equaling about 662,000. But what we failed to realize um, as a missed opportunity was the revenue loss, because that bonus we would have been paid, we got paid at a lower rate than if we had just not been paid a bonus and just been paid up front. So we ended up losing on that deal. So to combat this during the periods between 4 and 5, we incrementally um, restored our service levels, actually even higher than 95 where they originally were. And we were able to do this by requiring our suppliers to give us 98% plus reliability to build onto that uh, reliable supply chain and be able to deliver 95% plus service levels. And you can see on the graph that our return on investment was improving. Next. So for our decision to manufacture the PET bottles, we looked into the initial cost of the machinery, as well as the savings we would get per round, just um, in the savings of buying the PET bottles versus inflating them ourselves, and then the inventory cost saving because we'd have less pallets. Um, so we found that producing them in house would be about 10 times cheaper, which would lead us to a break even point around 4.5 rounds. We'd save around 187,000 per round, and you can see on the graph the illustration of the payoff period, and we break even right there, right just past 4.5. So that's why we decided to inflate our own bottles.
And then in terms of an actual ROI impact of deciding to inflate our own PET bottles, so we saved 239,000 in purchasing expense because of that, and we are also able to save 139,000 in stock and handling costs. Now, because we had to buy the machinery and pay it back, we did incur a $70,000 increase in project costs, um, and the actual machinery itself required an investment of $662,400. But even with those other two things, it actually was our single largest ROI improvement of the entire um, uh, project. So we had an anticipated ROI improvement of 6%, and we went up by 5.8% during this period.
Next comes our unconstrained capacity strategy. So from a primary perspective, we're looking from the supply chain point of view, using the unconstrained capacity analysis. And when we would compare the total cost of each of the mixers, of the bottling rates and their hours, um, the cost for investment. So first, we initially chose to use the Swissville 2 and the fruit mix due to their reliability and the cost of investment. We did this because we didn't want to change too much and we were improving. And so we wanted to keep our income consistent while reducing the amount of cost it would take to actually utilize other machinery, um, such as, Mega Chum and other things like that. Within that thought process, we you can see the effects of the mixer and the bottling costs, and these graphs were both made by Kadeem, and so I'll pass this next part on to him.
Yeah, just to further on what Akin had said, we are currently using Fruit Mix MQ and Top Speed and Swissfield 2 as our current mixers and bottling lines. And just following off from what Carlos and Elijah had said in the previous slide, we had a very significant increase in our ROI. And because our ROI was steadily increasing, we didn't want to do too much to actually hinder that process. So we had decided to stay with Fruit Mix and Swissfield 2. However, after coming back, finishing through the entire process, we did actually realize that this was an opportunity that we might have missed, because after calculating the the different bottling rates as well as the capacity for the different mixers and bottling lines, we did actually see that we could have potentially had over a 5% ROI increase by switching our mixer and bottling line, because the mixer and bottling line had a much larger capacity as well as a much faster bottling rate compared to Swissfield 2 and the our original fruit mix. Whilst we would have incurred a slightly higher cost of about $100,000 by switching, our return on investment would have been paid off within 2 periods, and we would have also seen a much larger increase in our ROI by about 5%.
Okay, so main challenges that we faced. The most notable one that comes to mind first would be variable sensitivity. So in the initial weeks of the project, if we were to speak to another group, we would definitely say to familiarize yourself with the sensitivity of important variables, such as service level. We had an issue with that early on, and that caused us to have ROI issues. And then attempt to only make a few changes per period only early on. This will allow you to understand the real effects of the changes that you are making, because if multiple different variables are changing, you don't necessarily know what's causing what. And then also avoid overcorrecting on your early mistakes, so that you don't go too far in the opposite direction.
So another challenge that we faced within the project was role cohesion, right? So it's very important and crucial that at the beginning we take time to understand what each role does within the Fresh Connection, our company, and then also what the results of one person's actions may have on another person's role. This is essential because oftentimes we try to solve a bigger issue by ourselves, and so we'll change something within that role and we won't know how it affects others, so it'll decrease the progress that that other person made. Which brings me to the second recommendation I would have, to better role cohesion, which is to solve bigger issues using multiple roles and collaborating with different positions, as opposed to just trying to change the problem yourself based off of the example I gave previously.
And our last recommendation slash challenge was that we had missed potential opportunities to actually increase the ROI by actually making these drastic changes. For example, our bottling line, and our mixers, where we had missed out on potential improvements towards our ROI, which leads me to our recommendation to where we would advise any other team to actually make potential changes, especially in the long run of the process, because you have more of a familiarity with the different variables and how everything affects one another.
I just want to add in one thing, guys, about recommendation. Is want to reiterate the importance of changing maybe one or two variables at a time, and considering the bullwhip effect, where you make a slight change somewhere in the supply chain, and it makes a bigger difference down the line. So just want to reiterate the importance of being careful when you're changing things. And definitely don't be shy, but keep in mind that bullwhip effect is a real thing. And yeah, we want to say thank you guys so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, and we deeply appreciate the opportunity that you guys are presenting to us today to actually be able to make this presentation and present to the board of directors. And from me and the rest of my team, thank you.